All the powerful...
It's a cabal of important, powerful people who are running the country.
And I thought to myself, when I heard descriptions like that, I bet Quentin Letts is somehow involved. Are you?
I've been to the Garrick a few times.
Why can't women be members?
Because it's a gents' club. My daughter, one of my daughters, is a member of an all-women's club called the University Women's Club, and they don't allow blokes in. It's an outrage. No, it's not. It's a free country.
I mean, it's archaic and it needs to change.
What is?
You know, is my view. The fact that the Garrick doesn't admit women members. There are lots of these members' clubs, you know, across London, probably in other parts of the country as well, and you know, you have to pay for membership, so it is well-to-do members of society that go. I've nothing against them existing, but all of them have changed their constitution. Those that were once men only, you know, they all now admit women. The only exception now is the Garrick. My other thought is, well, why are we talking about it if we've got nothing more important going on?
Just to be frank, I genuinely could not care less if there is a club that I'm not allowed into because of my sex. I do, though, think that if you're going to start...
You're allowed in, though. They let them in.
Yeah, but not as members.
Yeah.
But I do think if you're going to start, you know, having all of this kind of respect and all the rest of it for single-sex spaces for men, then you can't, as a society, allow the ridiculousness that goes on in female spaces when a man sticks a dress on and a wig maybe and a bit of lipstick if he's feeling bold and says that he's called Sharon and then wants to be allowed into that space, and then those establishments then buckle and let those men actually into things like changing rooms of women. That really, really annoys me.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight, manhunt after a knife attack on a train in broad daylight. Also, the Pakistani flag flies over Westminster Abbey. What on earth is going on here? And
those allegations were put to me, I got expert tax advice to make sure that I hadn't done anything wrong.
will the police look into Angela Rayner again, and Keir Starmer could be investigated? Is this what brings Labour down? Plus,
is there a part of you that can see you and your family going back to the UK, becoming working royals with the monarchy?
No.
Prince Harry has just cost you £500,000. Find out why and...
Just cut my lawns with this electric lawnmower. It's got batteries on, look. Look at that.
Lee Anderson is live. He's picked fights with the Home Secretary, eco-fanatic Dale Vince and the NHS. On my panel tonight is Director of Popular Conservatives Mark Littlewood, activist Adam Brooks and author Rebecca Reid. Oh, and can you guess what went wrong here?
This is the letter delivering to West Streeting. It appears that there's no police here this time.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Should the Pakistani flag be hoisted above our churches? Next.
First, the latest from the GB Newsroom at 10:02. Good evening. Our top story, a poll has found that fewer than 1 in 4 people in Britain are satisfied with the National Health Service. That's the lowest level since records began 40 years ago, with lack of access to GPs among the top concerns. Long waiting lists are also a major worry, with just 24% saying they're satisfied with the service, down from 70% in 2010. The report found that tight funding and staff shortages over the last decade have left the NHS in a continual state of crisis. Labour has said today it's going to ban the bonuses of water company bosses when they oversee the polluting of Britain's waterways. It's after new figures show raw sewage was dumped into England's rivers and seas for more than 3.6 million hours in 2023. That's more than double the previous year and the highest level on record. Helen Wakeham from the Environment Agency says more investment is needed in storm overflows.
The Environment Agency required water companies to monitor all their discharges. We've got 100% coverage now of the sewerage network, and that accounts for some of the increase. But actually, it just shows the scale of storm overflow operation in a wet year. And the purpose of putting the monitoring in place was to make an argument for more regulation and more investment in storm overflows. And I think, the results from last year show exactly why that's required.
Now, giving out free vapes in emergency departments could help thousands of smokers to quit, according to a new study. The University of East Anglia conducted a trial in 6 emergency departments across the UK. One group of daily smokers were given a free vape with guidance on quitting smoking. The other group was given only written information on how to stop smoking. And after 6 months, those given the vapes were 76% more likely to have quit smoking. A mural by Banksy in North London has been fenced off by the local council. The artwork in Finsbury Park features splashes of green paint on a residential building which is behind a cut-back tree, giving the appearance of lush green leaves. Credit was claimed by the street artist on social media, but just days later it was vandalised with white paint. Islington Council came in saying it's now discussing future solutions with the homeowner, and that'll mean the public can enjoy the artwork while also keeping it protected. And lawmakers in Thailand have voted overwhelmingly in support of same-sex marriage. It's a historic step for one of Asia's most liberal countries and will make it the only nation in Southeast Asia to recognise same-sex unions. It comes after years of campaigning and a bill that's almost 10 years in the making. It's expected to be passed into law by the end of the year. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen right now or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. The Pakistani flag with the Islamic crescent and star was hoisted above Westminster Abbey during Lent. Now, before the usual type starts shouting at me, yes, I am aware that they do this to mark Pakistan Day and they do it for other countries as well. But I do find it a little bit laughable, OK? Special prayers were offered to the continued friendship between our nations. The highlight of the occasion, apparently, was that they kept the flag flying all day. Christians are persecuted in Pakistan. Occupations that are deemed low, dirty and degrading, such as working as a sewer cleaner, are reserved for Christians by the authorities, reportedly. Many are referred to as chura, a derogatory term meaning filthy. In August last year, 20 churches and almost 100 homes were attacked. Now, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think there are too many mosques flying the St. George's flag. This is, of course, an isolated incident, but I am old enough to remember back in 2012 when some British Muslims burned the St. George's flag and told the Queen to go to hell because we were knighting Salman Rushdie. Now, I think we might need a few more of Archbishop Welby's special prayers, don't you? Anyone who had a problem with the Pakistani flag over our most prominent church was laughed at and called, and apologies if you find this term offensive, a flag shagger. It makes me laugh, this, because the people throwing that slur around tend to have a load of flags in their Twitter bios. The Palestine flag, the Ukrainian flag, the gay pride flag, the EU flag, sometimes all of them. In fact, in Britain, it seems like the only flag you're not allowed to like is your own. In Luton, the local council has hoisted the Palestinian flag above their building. We've got a hospital in Bromley that unveiled a bridge wrapped in a giant three-sided intersex inclusive flag showing the LGBT+ rainbow. In Glasgow, the council debated a motion from the Greens that wanted to remove the Union flag and replace it with, get this, a rolling roster of the Palestinian flag, the Cuban flag, the French flag for Bastille Day, the German flag, the Pakistani flag, the Ukrainian flag, and, of course, not to be forgotten, the Scottish flag as well. Now, forgive me, OK? But they're making love to a lot of other flags there, aren't they? Now, compare this to the Royal Mail banning the St. George's flag being flown on their vehicles. I mean, they are called the Royal Mail, for goodness sake. Then there's the left-leaning Independent running headlines like this. Is flying a St. George's flag an act of patriotism or a symbol of all that is bad about England? One Labour council banned the St. George's flag because it was offensive to their 16 Muslim constituents. P&O Cruises reportedly stopped people flying the Union flag as their ships sailed back to Britain because apparently it was deemed offensive. Emily Thornberry's infamous tweet during the old Rochester election campaign appeared to mock the St. George's flag and indeed white van men before our very own Stephen Dixon handed her rear end to her live on GB News.
like he done? I mean, seriously, you can hardly recognise it as the England flag, can you? I mean, England flag is a simple white background and a red cross. Seems to me, why can't they just leave it alone?
To be fair, you're not a particular fan of the St George's Cross, are you?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you had to. You took the mickey out of someone flying the England flag and had to resign as a result of it.
There is a sense in Britain that we have to bow down to every other culture, religion and flag other than our own. Now, I'm just going to ask a question, OK? Are this lot not the real ones obsessed with flags? Or this lot? I think they are. Let's get the thoughts now of my panel. I am joined this evening by the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I have got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Mark, I will start with you. Now, as the Pakistani flag was flown above Westminster Abbey, the Palestinian flag above Luton Town Hall, do you think the left are ashamed of the St George's Cross and desperate to celebrate other countries before our own?
Seems that way, doesn't it, Patrick? It seems that on the, I don't know what you'd call it, the progressive left, there is this sort of virtue signalling that you need to show that you're incredibly cosmopolitan, worried about other countries, not so worried about our own. I'd just put it this way. I'm a very simple man. I just want things labelled correctly. And if you're a public building in England, you should be flying the Union flag and or the St George's. Scotland, the Scottish flag or the Union Jack. Just label things correctly. Privately, by the way, I don't mind. Somebody wants to go on a demo with a Palestinian flag draped over them, or, I don't know, if you're a Portuguese person living in London, you want to fly the Portuguese flag for the Euros, fine. Public buildings and our established church, the Church of England, very different. Very simple rule. Label things correctly. That means the St George flag or the Union flag.
That's smart to say. Adam, your views on this?
Yeah, it just astounds me. If it's not an LGBTQ plus and a million letters flag, it's a rainbow flag or another country's flag. Why can this country not embrace its own flags? You know, no other country is like this. We're not Great Britain anymore. We're pathetic Britain. We have so many people that are ashamed of their own flag or think it's trendy. They get on this bandwagon to attack their own country and embrace others. You know, I'm pretty sure we shouldn't have put, like, Ukraine flags on all our churches either. Why do we virtue signal like this? It's so we can support causes without these displaying of foreign flags. It drives me crazy.
I suppose, Rebecca, you know, look, if we weren't also simultaneously doing things like certain companies like Royal Mail saying, oh, you can't fly the St George's Cross in case people find it offensive, or P&O Cruises or whatever, then I suppose it maybe wouldn't really matter so much. But there seems to be a simultaneous promotion of other flags and also the denigration of our own, no?
Yeah, I can see why you'd feel that way, because the Pakistan flag is a bit of a non-story in the sense that it's a Commonwealth country and we're celebrating the Commonwealth. If you feel that Pakistan is not a country that treats Christians well, we should talk about them not being in the Commonwealth. But currently, I believe in the Commonwealth. I think it's a really special union and we are being embracing of the Commonwealth. That's why that's there. That's always been flown there, certainly my whole life. I remember going there as a small child. I've grown up in London. I've seen that flag on that building since I was about 5. So this is not new. What is new, and in the report that you did, you conflated a lot of examples with flags from about the last 12 years. So Emily Thornberry's experience was, I believe, 10 years ago. So you are putting together lots of examples of things that have happened over a very long period of time.
You're right, I am putting together lots of examples of things that have happened. Yes.
But over the last 10 years, not all things that happened this year or this week. So this is not a problem that suddenly started like this the other day. We have had a growing sense that the St George's flag is perhaps a symbol of something that is not delightful and delicious. The Union flag, I don't think anybody has a problem with. Adam has it in his Twitter bio. I don't think that's problematic at all. I think it's lovely.
I'm proud.
The St George's Cross has been, unfortunately, co-opted by some very unsavoury people, and that's why some people find it uncomfortable.
Some of those people, I would argue, maybe should be the actual Church of England, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, all of this, it's been co-opted. Co-opt it back. I'm old enough to remember when there was a concern that the Union flag was associated with groups like the National Front, for example, because they would plaster it everywhere and we weren't typically using it in mainstream culture at all. If that's happening to the St George flag, if you're worried about various different groups that are using it, do not allow them to have the full copyright and ownership of it. Snatch it back.
But it's a flag.
It is an emblem of the nation, not of a political cause.
I think Patrick hit the nail on the head over there when he said, can you imagine a mosque in Pakistan? Remember, it's 98% Muslim.
Flying the Stars and Stripes.
Yeah. Our Union flag.
But maybe they should. But shouldn't we be better than anyone else?
Why do we do this virtual signalling nonsense?
If we are the best country in the world, we should be signalling our virtues, and one of our virtues is inclusivity and tolerance, and the fact that we are not just one lone nation.
Our flag too.
We are part of a united nation. We are part of multiple nations: England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and the Commonwealth.
That way, though, you know,
then I think that's very sad. But we do.
But
we're
it's
great.
The reality, isn't it? We're doing this for nothing. Aren't we? You can have
it's not for nothing.
special prayers.
So the Commonwealth means nothing to you? You think Commonwealth is pointless?
This particular example of it, of the flag being hoisted, the Pakistani flag above Westminster Abbey, and us making a massive virtue of it, and it was fluttering all day, and it was great because the tourists were stopping, and they were like, I bet they were wondering what the heck is going on.
Confused.
Yeah, and then they go.
Why would you be confused? It's part of the Commonwealth.
Nothing. I do bet, honestly, I do wonder whether or not there are certain people actually in Pakistan who look at this and they are laughing at it.
But this has been happening for decades. This is not a new thing. Why is it a problem for you today when this happened last year and 10 years ago and 20 years ago? Why is it a problem today?
Because I've seen it today.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the issue, is that you're just crosser about it because you feel like it's new, but it's not new.
Rebecca, you say that it's sort of, isn't it great, because we're such a great country, that we should signal our virtues?
Demonstrate our virtues.
I actually want us to practice our virtues.
I think we do.
Signal them,
I think we do I think we all do every single day.
This is basically, I mean, an alternative to actually practicing. I'm a big fan of the Commonwealth. But if you're serious about it, we should be moving to, I don't know, a Commonwealth free trade area.
Okay, so this
that would do an awful lot to actually practice.
But this is on a church. So the church has things called sacraments. The definition of a sacrament is an outward sign of an inward grace. That is virtue signalling by definition.
I tell you what, I wonder whether or not, if we had
that's not the main thing a country should do.
To that hospital in Bromley, the idea that we were going to spend a bit of money and put the Union flag or the St George's Cross wrapped around the side of one of their new bridges there at the hospital, that would have gone down like a cup of cold.
So you're saying when we had the Olympics...
That's OK.
Why maybe on St George's Day don't we have St George's flags all over our police cars, our fire engines and our ambulances?
At the coronation we did.
Like we have rainbow flags and LGBT
But on the coronation we did. In Pride Month we have Pride flags. On the coronation we had Union Jacks.
We are England all year round. So there isn't England Day. We are England.
There is England Day. It's St George's Day.
It causes
we are
division.
England all year
But there is an England Day. It's St George's Day. That's just
we are England
technically untrue.
365
Yeah, but you just said there isn't an England Day, and there is.
No, but
it's St George's Day.
We don't surely only use the English national flag on St George's Day.
No one is only using it on one day, but we do have
365 days a year.
Yes, and
they should be on the Royal Mail every day.
And they are.
Unless you're Nike, and then it's got to be a progressive flag.
Yeah, but look, the idea that Nike is some huge lefty rainbow virtue signalling organisation, that is a massive capitalist conglomerate. That is mostly staffed by white men. It is not a woke institution. There is nothing woke about Nike.
All right.
Dylan Mulvaney says otherwise.
Yeah, OK. All right, well, there we go. Now, it is time for our spring giveaway, yes, and it's the final week to see how you could win gadgets, a shopping spree and an amazing £12,345 in cash. Make sure you do not miss out. Here's all the details you'll need.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, a 77-year-old grandfather died after waiting almost 32 hours for an ambulance because paramedics were on strike. So will Reform UK ban walkouts from health workers? In a moment, I will probe their new MP, Lee Anderson, for some policy commitments. But up next, after it was revealed that sex offender Abdelaziz wasn't deported because of a known bogus Christianity claim, do our open doors pose a threat to women in Britain? Writer and broadcaster Emma Webb goes head-to-head with political commentator Joanna Jarju, and that is next.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Now, the massive debate back across the pond is NATO.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking NATO every day. It was your comments about them not paying enough, not
They
paying
gotta
2%.
pay.
And you
gotta
said
pay.
this, you said it again recently. You made a comment, well, the Russians can do whatever they want if these guys don't pay.
Well,
that's now being
that's-
used.
Well, they can use it. I don't really care if they use it
Okay.
because what I'm saying is that's a form of negotiation. Why should we guard these countries that have a lot of money? And the United States was paying for most of NATO. And when I went there, and I already had it out with them, and now they stopped paying again. But now they're paying because of those comments that you saw 2-3 weeks ago. The question was asked by the head of a major country in front of everyone else, 28 countries at the time, including us. They said, so if we don't pay our bills, are you going to protect us from Russia? I said, you mean you're delinquent? You're not paying the bills? Yes. Nope, I'm not going to pay you. We're not going to do it. We're not going to defend you. If you're not paying your bills, we're not going to defend you. It's very simple. And hundreds of billions of dollars came flowing in. Now, if I say, yes, I am, they're not going to pay their bills. Why would they do that? NATO has to treat the U.S. fairly because if it's not for the United States, NATO literally doesn't even exist. But they took advantage of us like most countries do.
If they start to pay their bills properly and the club is fair, are places like Poland defended? Will America be there?
I believe the United States was paying 90% of NATO, the cost of NATO. It could be 100%. It was the most unfair thing. And don't forget, it's more important to them than it is to us. We have an ocean in between some problems. It's more important for them. They were taking advantage, and they did. They took advantage of us on trade, and they took advantage on
So if
the
they
military.
play fair, if they start to play fair, America's there.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
Thank you.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight. We are on GB News, and it is time now for our head-to-head. So former Tory Deputy Chairman turned Reform MP Lee Anderson does take on James Cleverly, Dale Vince and NHS strikers shortly. But first, do our open borders pose a threat to women in Britain? Yes, well, it's emerged that Clapham chemical attacker and convicted sex offender Abdelaziz failed a Christianity test during his third-time lucky asylum appeal. The dangerous sex monster successfully convinced the immigration judge he was fit to walk our streets and terrorise women, despite lying about his religion, his past and being deemed such a sexual threat that he was subject to a special safeguarding contract in order for him to attend his local church. And to round off this complete mockery of our pathetic system, it was revealed today that Azidi was given a Muslim burial in West London. Classic. A serial sex offender being able to dupe the system before viciously attacking a woman and her two daughters with chemicals on the streets of Britain raises serious concerns about the dangers potentially being posed to women by the illegal migrant crisis. And as I revealed last night, there is an unproven but apparent correlation between areas with a large influx of asylum seekers and an increase in sexual offences. We, of course, await the data from the Ministry of Justice to definitively prove that either way. So, do our open borders pose a threat to the women of Britain? Let me know your thoughts. gbviews@gbnews.com. Tweet me at GBNews. Make sure you take part in our poll. The results will follow shortly. But doing battle on this now are writer and broadcaster Emma Webb and political commentator Joanna Jarju. Both of you, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Emma, I'll start with you. Does the illegal migrant crisis pose a threat to women?
Well, firstly, I think it poses a safety threat to all of us, but women in particular. The Yazidis case is a perfect example of that. And I find it peculiar that this isn't something that bothers feminists more. We hear so much about things like rape culture and the patriarchy, but there doesn't seem to be any common sense when it comes to just flinging open the doors to who knows who, because we really don't know who is coming in. And like I say, that itself poses a safety risk. But we know that a lot of these are young men who are coming from what feminists should be calling highly patriarchal cultures, who don't necessarily have much respect for women by Western standards. So, of course, this is going to pose a threat to women. And the challenge that I would put to anybody who doubts this, ask any woman you know. And if you are a woman, surely, particularly if you're living in one of the big cities like London, I know that I feel less safe than I used to when I'm in London, particularly at night. We're seeing rising crime levels. I'm not necessarily saying that is directly correlated to mass migration, but the point is that this is a kind of entropy, a kind of chaos that we are imposing on ourselves, because if you don't know who is coming into your country, then you simply cannot have security, and that affects all of us, and it affects women.
Yeah, Joanna, I mean, when you look at the small boat crossings, for example, roughly speaking, about 85% of them are men. They're coming from countries like Iran, Sudan. There's a whole host of other countries in that region, of course, as well. Egypt, for example, as well. Do you not think that maybe does pose a disproportionate risk to women, given the way that a lot of women are treated in those countries?
I mean, not necessarily. Obviously, with this case, with the person that perpetrated this crime, it's very specific and obviously it's very extreme. But I think that it's complete rubbish and actually quite ludicrous to pretend as if people who come from a certain type of a certain part of the world are more likely to commit this crime. Clearly, you've said, Patrick, that, the data hasn't come back yet. We haven't been able to verify that. But also, it's completely discriminatory to pretend as if these people are more likely to commit these crimes. I'm more unsafe walking the streets of London, equally, maybe because there's a bunch of people who are coming on boats who are predators. Equally, the same with the Met Police. We've seen with Sarah Everard case what happened, and criminals can come in all shapes and sizes, whether they're white, black, asylum seekers, or with British passports. So it's completely ridiculous to pretend as if something that's actually our international obligation, not an open border, and we're not the only country that's obliged to take in asylum seekers, that all of a sudden just makes us more susceptible to crime. Crime comes in all shapes and sizes.
All right, Emma, do you want to come back to that?
Well, I just think it is against common sense to suggest that culture doesn't have an impact on the way that people behave or the way that they see things. We know that, the Taliban have just announced that they're going to be stoning women to death in public. We know that that there are. And I think actually that many Western feminists find it very difficult to call these sorts of things out because they're frightened of being called.
Emma, I'm sorry, but that's.
Oh, sorry, John. I'll come to you in a second.
I sat patiently and waited while you made your point. My point is simply that this is a risk to everybody, actually, not just women. And of course, this is sex offences might pose a specific risk to women. But the reality is, if you don't have any control over your borders, you've got no idea who's coming into your country. That doesn't create a safer environment for anyone.
OK, go on, Joanna. Sorry, you were itching to get involved there.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous because just as many sexual predators or people who are, perpetrate violence against women could have been coming from places that we actually have these resettlement schemes, like Ukraine, like Hong Kong. But the difference
Can I just stop you there? But just purely because it was women and children from Ukraine, so it is highly unlikely.
Well, it might be women and children from Ukraine predominantly, but there's also men that are coming. It's not just women and children. But the point is, as a country, we can decide who we give these resettlement schemes to. And obviously, we're very specific because there's this kind of thing against, Islamists, which rightfully so, if it is extreme. And for Emma, for you to cite things like the Taliban and equate that with genuine asylum seekers, which some of these people who are coming on these boats are actual genuine asylum seekers. And if there's anybody to blame, then it's the actual Home Office. If they were actually processing people and going through the right procedures, then we wouldn't have these problems and you wouldn't have people who would be able to game the system. But like I said, and going back to the main point, the point is that criminals and people who perpetrate violence against women come in every single colour. And I'm just as unsafe, potentially, walking down the street and having somebody and being another Sarah Everard and having the Met Police, who I'm equally as terrified, as an asylum seeker. So to pretend as if it's a problem because these people are coming from a certain type of the world and then also using this kind of cheap shot about feminism, I think it's completely
Emma, with respect, is that perhaps the kind of maybe blind spot that you were talking about? I'm just having a look at some of the stats here. So between 2018 and 2023, according to Migration Watch UK, just under 16,000 people came from Afghanistan on small boats. 95% of them were male. As well. If the societal norms in those countries or that country is that women are treated less than second-class citizens, is it not reasonable to expect that they may have those views when they come here?
I'm going to be charitable and assume that your other guest isn't willfully misrepresenting my views. But it's not to say that every single person who comes here as an asylum seeker is going to be a sex offender or anything like that. Would be an absurd thing to suggest. But what you are suggesting is that if you don't know who's coming in, then you don't know who might be gaming the system. You're letting people into your country in a way that is obviously going to contribute to insecurity, like I say, because you don't know who they are. And also what you do know is that they are coming from cultures where we know that women are treated badly. Okay. So there are two factors here, but your guest is misrepresenting me if she's suggesting that I'm suggesting that all people are like, which is not what I have said.
Final word, Joanna. Joanna, do you accept that potentially other parts of the world, like, dare I say, the Middle East and North Africa, maybe do have slightly more of a problem with misogyny than we have over here?
Yeah, of course. You could think that based on who you ask, from different parts of the world. And our perception of something is completely different. But that's also, and Emma, the reason why you think that I'm misrepresenting your views is because you're citing things like the Taliban. You're citing things that are the most extreme. So how can I not, view it as the way that you're actually presenting it? Of course, talking about misogyny in terms of how women are treated is completely different from this case, which is the most extreme. And when you cite things like the Taliban, which is the most extreme, then obviously it creates something where people are more fearful and you're actually scaremongering. And equally, we don't know the people who are coming from Ukraine. We don't know the people who are coming from Hong Kong either. So it's the same, but the difference is there is an actual open door policy, and we
with respect, we do absolutely know the people. It's not true. I do have to point that out. We do absolutely know who the people are coming from Hong Kong. That's just a fact because they arrived here, most of them on planes with their passports, and told us.
Yeah, okay, they came here on planes with a passport, but also they've also got history potentially, and anybody can come with a clean record and then the next day create a crime and commit a crime. So
all right, yeah, fair enough. All right, look, both of you, thank you very, very much. Good stuff. That good head-to-head. Look, who do you agree with? Do our open borders pose a threat to women in Britain? Ariana on X says everyone with an ounce of sense will say yes. Chris says open borders pose a real threat to everyone, not just women. Yep. And Nick says, oh, make your mind up. You were criticising Border Force last night for detaining 2 Arab brothers. Yeah, Israeli, fine, I'll take your point there. Whilst they did checks, now our borders are too open for you. They can't win, can they? All right, your verdict is now in. 98% of you agree that our open borders pose a threat to women in Britain. 2% of you say they don't. Coming up. Now, it's just been revealed that Prince Harry's failed legal bid to get special police protection cost the state £500,000. So is the runaway royal taking advantage of the British taxpayer? Former BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole says it how it is very shortly. But speaking of straight talkers, Lee Anderson, he joins me next. I'll ask him if the NHS needs to be privatised. Are reform going to ban health workers from going on strikes? That'll be interesting, won't it? Plus, which climate fanatic has he picked a fight with now?
Just cut my lawns with this electric lawnmower. It's got batteries on, look. Look at that.
Lee Anderson, that's his rip-roaring best. Next on Patrick Christys Tonight.
Want to be a winner just like Phil?
Obviously, whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
Enter our massive spring giveaway. There's £12,345 in tax-free cash to give your finances a spring boost. We'll also send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. You'll also get a garden gadget package. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Coming up, after his failed legal bid cost the taxpayer more than £500,000, should Prince Harry be made to pay the money back himself? But I'm joined now by the MP for Reform UK, it's Lee Anderson, and public satisfaction with the NHS has hit an all-time low, as just 24% of people across Britain say they are satisfied. I'm surprised it's that high. This figure is 29% lower than before the COVID pandemic and an enormous 46% lower than in 2010. And stories are now emerging about how the record-breaking strike action by medics is having fatal consequences. Just yesterday, an inquest heard how William Guy, a 77-year-old grandfather from Anglesey, died after waiting almost 32 hours for an ambulance because paramedics were on strike. Mr. Guy broke his hip after falling in the bathroom of his care home. Without medical attention, he developed pneumonia and he tragically passed away. Lee Anderson joins me now. Thank you very, very much. What should be done to stop something like this happening again, do you think, then, Lee?
Well, we already have an Act of Parliament which was passed last year, Patrick, the minimum service agreement, but it doesn't seem to be working that good because this particular case is a shocker. Now, I think a lot of this, Patrick, has to lay on the conscience of the people that's taking strike action. If you take strike action and you're a doctor, a nurse, an ambulance driver, whatever, then lives will be put at risk. And I'm fairly sure, because I've spent time with some of the ambulance staff in Ashfield, spent a shift with them and going out to different calls, and the majority of them are decent, hard-working people who do the job for the right reasons, and they hate to see this sort of stuff happen. But you have to bear in mind, Patrick, as well as this, there are lots of people who are calling ambulances on a daily basis who are just time wasters. We had one particular case where one chap in Ashfield, he called the ambulance 100 times in a month, and I think the worst thing he'd got wrong with him was an headache. Now, these sort of people, once they start, ringing the ambulance service on this sort of level, should be charged every single time. Okay. That would go some way to helping. And also, we've got the backlog at A&E and stuff like this, which doesn't help. But really, if you're an ambulance driver and somebody dies on your watch because it's taken you 30-odd hours to get there, then that's on their conscience.
So would reform ban NHS workers from going on strike, do you think?
Well, it's very interesting you say this about reform, because I was speaking to my colleagues in Reform today about this very thing. We're having a serious discussion on this topic next week at our meeting.
So it's possible. It's possible. You're going to have a talk about it.
Anything's possible. There's got to be a consensus, but nobody likes to see emergency workers on strike because the consequences, Patrick, as we've just learnt on your programme, are devastating.
What would your view on it be, Lee? Do you think you should ban it? I mean, what will you be arguing in that meeting?
My personal view is that emergency workers should not be going on strike. Full stop. That should be in your contract. I mean, what would happen, Patrick, if the police officers went on strike, our army went on strike, our prison officers went on strike? The country would come to a standstill. There has to be a moral obligation from these sort of workers to make sure that even when times are tough, you do your job.
OK. All right. Well, look, regarding the inquest into William Guy's death, Sonia Thompson, who's the Assistant Director of Operations for the Welsh Ambulance Service Trust, said that they had planned as much as practically possible to minimise the risk to patients on strike days, saying that the unions opted only to attend immediately life-threatening calls and that some categories were deemed as critical. So, obviously, some people slipped through the net. Now, Lee, just moving it on, Joseph Fritzl, the man who kept his daughter captive for 24 years, has said that he wants to emigrate to the UK and, quote, roam free on the Highlands of Scotland. Well, the Home Secretary set about putting British minds at ease. James Cleverly said this monster is never coming to our country and any attempt to travel to the UK will be refused, as it would be for anyone convicted of a serious sex offence like this. But Lee, quick as a flash, you replied to your old colleague, unless he jumps on a small boat in which he'll be in the Ritz Carlton Hotel by tea time. Yeah, I mean, look, to be fair, if the Abdulaziz case, Lee, nothing would surprise you, would it?
Well, I mean, if this Joseph Fritzl wants to roam free in the Highlands of Scotland, I've got good news for him. It's highly likely that if he jumps on a dinghy in northern France, he could be in northern Scotland the following afternoon. Because, it's all right the Home Secretary saying this. I'm surprised he's actually tweeted this, Patrick, bearing in mind we've had 120,000 plus come over the channel in small boats over the past 3 or 4 years. Some of these have been rapists, murderers, paedophiles. This Fritzl chap, like I say, he can just jump on a dinghy and come. And the chances are that if he gets into difficulty in the channel, he'll probably get picked up by Border Force, then shipped to a processing centre, then put in a 4-star hotel where he can probably complain about the Wi-Fi, and then then he can op it up to Scotland. And if he don't like it up there, he can come back, claim asylum about 3 or 4 times. And the good news is that if he's scared to go back to his country, wherever he's from, on a religious basis, he can just pop into the local church, get baptised, Bob's your uncle, British citizenship. It's nonsense.
All right. Did you ever like James Cleverly?
Yes, I get on really well with James, but I'm just surprised that an Home Secretary, after 120,000 people have come into the country, and we've only removed, excluding Albanians, we've only removed probably less than 1% of those. He can actually say that this person can't get into this country. We can't stop them.
And what is it? And what is Reform's policy to stop this now? Then, so no one
send them back. You know what the Reform's policy is, Patrick. Send them back the same day. If the Border Force can pick them up in the Channel and bring them over to England, Border Force can pick them up in the Channel and take them back to France.
And you would go into French waters and
I would drive the boat myself, Patrick. And if you want to come along, let's do it.
Well, so you would this is interesting. So if you do get re-elected, right? And well, I mean, if Reform won the election, I suppose it would take. So with respect, not the most likely thing in the world, although the way things are going in the polls, you never know, Lee. You would be driving a boat yourself and towing them back to France.
I tell you what, there was plenty of boats went over in 1945, Patrick. We can do it again.
Right. Finally, Lee, at the weekend, you filmed yourself doing your bit for the environment and getting right behind the drive for net zero. Let's have a look.
Just cut my lawns with this electric lawnmower. It's got batteries on, look. Look at that. That's net zero at its finest. Trouble is, I've charged this up early on today, and probably electricity has come from Radcliffe Power Station, just about 10 miles down the road. That runs on gas and sometimes coal. What a load of nonsense that is, net zero.
Well, that annoyed all the right people, Lee, including the Just Stop Oil and Labour Party donor Dale Vince, who said, "You have no idea what net zero means. Your lawnmower is not an example of that. Britain's grid is nearly 50% renewable now. That's the better measure of what is powering your battery-powered gift. Even if you were using power straight from Radcliffe, that's 3 to 4 times more fuel efficient than a tiny lawnmower engine is, and there's no noise or air pollution for your neighbours, other than you spouting off, of course." Lee, you going to come back to that?
Well, the only pollution here, Patrick, is Dale Vince's nonsense, which he spouts out on a daily basis. Ask this eco-loon how much money he's made in the last 30 years from renewables. I bet he's made absolutely millions of pounds. He's got a vested interest in this net zero nonsense. The people that I associate with, Patrick, in Ashfield, my constituents, my friends and family, they have to worry about paying their energy bills. This person doesn't have to worry about a thing. He's got probably millions of pounds in the bank. He makes a fortune out of this net zero journey. He needs to shut up or come up to Ashfield. I'll tell you what now, I'll invite him on your show now, Patrick. Come up to Ashfield, to one of the old miners' welfares, and speak to some real people about their energy bills.
Right, OK, just quickly then. So if I put together a show that involves you and Dale Vince in Ashfield, you think you could make that work, yeah?
Let's have him up here. Bring some vegans with you as well.
Right, OK. Lee, thank you very, very much. That is Lee Anderson there, the Reform UK MP for Ashfield. Coming up, Angela Rayner thought her council house row was over.
Since those allegations were put to me, I got expert tax advice to make sure that I hadn't done anything wrong.
But today it emerges police are reassessing claims that she broke the law. Is this a major scandal getting ignored by the establishment media in this country? But next, is his failed bid for a special security, the Duke of Sussex, cost the British taxpayers, you, me, it's everyone, £500,000 in legal fees, apparently. Harry, meanwhile, appears to be laughing all the way to the bank. So, should he and Meghan be made to pay the money back? Former royal correspondent at the Beeb, Michael Cole, has fascinating insights on this, and you do not want to miss it. That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Can the Church of England not spend their money as they wish?
The Church of England can do amazing things for this country and for the world, and I'm not sure why it's chosen to focus on this specific issue. You know, one of the causes that I've always thought the Church was very good at were things called almshouses, which were basically houses that would be built on church estates for the needy. Not only did they want to spend £100 million on this fund, that they wanted to spend £1 billion on reparations as well. Well, why not spend £100 million or £1 billion on a new generation of almshouses, as opposed to just helping one group of people, black British people? Why not just help all people in need?
Alex?
Well, I just don't understand what the Church of England is trying to do. It's on its deathbed.
Congregations have reduced. I mean, deathbed is maybe a little bit...
Well, look, if we look over 20 years, it's dramatically lower than it used to be. And a lot of criticism from actual Christians come from the values that the Church of England are now propagating. And Justin Welby has a lot to answer for, because, you know, not only are we seeing in the news there's mass conversion of illegal immigrants to a gay mass system in the UK, but now we're seeing them spending money... And as Albie actually pointed out correctly, in a way that doesn't really benefit broader society, it benefits a very small group of people. So I just don't know where it's going to end. This committee has also said £1 million's not enough. It's 100 million, sorry.
Church commissioners are now hoping for a target of £1 billion.
I mean, it's woke nonsense, isn't it?
You could make the argument that this is charity. Austin Welby's job is to be a virtue signaller, is it not?
Charity discriminate? I mean, that's what he's saying. We're only going to give this to people from a specific skin colour or background. I don't think that's very Christian of them.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Still to come, after Angela Rayner's council house chaos and Starmer's alleged pressuring of Lindsay Hoyle, are the establishment media now guilty of giving Labour an easy ride? There have been some developments, and I'll bring them to you at 10. But first, it's time for the Royal Dispatch with former BBC Royal correspondent Michael Cole. And it was revealed today that Prince Harry's failed legal bid to reinstate his taxpayer-funded police protection in Britain has ended up costing the British taxpayer more than £500,000. A Freedom of Information request has unearthed the huge sum, which showed the total cost of the two separate judicial review claims lodged by the Duke of Sussex over 2.5 years of legal proceedings brought against the Home Office. Now, the cost to the public purse is raising awkward questions as to whether a royal family member should really be taking legal action against the British government. And then, obviously, we're paying for it, by the looks of things. So, Michael Cole joins me now. What do you think about all of this? £500,000 the cost to the taxpayer of essentially fighting Prince Harry. Should he be paying us this money himself, do you think?
Good evening, Patrick. Anywhere you will ever go in the world, there are two things that are never cheap: lobsters and lawyers. And this bill of £500,000 is coming to us, the taxpayer, for a case that's dragged on over 2.5 years. And the judge, Mr. Justice Lane, was very scathing about the case that the Prince, and we see him coming out of the High Court there, brought. He said it had nothing rational about it, and it was not procedurally wrong. What it turns upon is the fact that the man we see there wants to have round-the-clock armed protection for himself and his family if they're with him whenever he comes into this country. Now, the absurdity of this case is this, that any time he deigns to honour us with his presence, he does get police protection. You will remember when he came in for a 26-hour visit to his father when the announcement of the Queen's cancer was made. He came and he was in two black Range Rovers with coppers wall-to-wall inside it when he came and when he went. He has police protection, but what he wants and has demanded and has pursued a case is to have round the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt you, Michael. That is, you're right, the core of it. But I mean, you know, this development today is it cost us £500,000 just us having to fight him. So, I mean, he could presumably continually, gratuitously bring cases. We would have to fight it, and the taxpayer pays for it. I mean, look, maybe I'm naive about this, and wrong, clearly. I assumed that if you lost a case, you tended to pay the legal costs for the other side of it, but not so.
Yeah, he's the prince of litigation these days, and that money, £180,000 of it, went to outside barristers who are hired in by our government, and £220,000 went to the government's own legal department. That's the Attorney General, the Solicitor General, and the Treasury Council. So that's £400,000, and then there are other odds and ends, which all add up. And of course, lawyers love their fees. If they happen to think about you as they're driving home, they are very certain to charge you and put it on the bill. So we are the mugs in all this. But what is the outcome? The Prince now says that he's going to appeal against this case, although Mr. Justice Lane's judgment is pretty swingeing. And of course, I believe, and I certainly hope, that he will need permission to take the case further. He has several cases going. Some he wins, some he loses. It's said that this case against the Home Office, which we now know had no chance of success, has cost him £1 million. Of course, this question of security is very expensive. Out in California, he has to pay for his own. And I imagine that 3 8-hour shifts of burly men guarding their Californian Camelot costs quite a lot of money. But it hasn't deterred him from coming here. Is it abuse of the system? Well, I think that's something for his conscience and for somebody else to decide. But I hope that he desists. I hope that common sense will dawn. But of course, we haven't seen much sign or evidence of that so far.
No, I find it astonishing you could turn your back on the taxpayer, you know, the people that absolutely loved him, and then all of a sudden we get slapped with a £500,000 bill and the rest probably, and it doesn't appear to be a whisper of Harry forking out for that. Look, Michael, thank you very much. You're always an absolute superstar. That is the former BBC Royal correspondent Michael Cole. Coming up, I've got an exclusive involving more of your money and a French migrant fence. Yep. But next, Angela Rayner's council house row has reared its head again. So the development is this. Police are reassessing claims that she broke the law. And Keir Starmer could face an investigation for allegedly coercing the Speaker. That's come back around again. Why won't the mainstream media talk more about this? Patrick Christys tonight, GB News.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The weather continues to throw pretty much everything at us. Further heavy downpours tomorrow, snow in places and some gusty winds along the south coast thanks to this area of low pressure. Bands of showers have been spreading across the country throughout the past 24 hours or so, and another one spreading north tonight will bring some wet weather across southern England, South Wales, and that will develop some snow, perhaps over the West Midlands, certainly parts of Gloucestershire, Herefordshire and into central and then northern parts of Wales. Mostly over the hills, the snow, but there could be some at lower levels. Heavy rain for many elsewhere. As the rain clears from Scotland and Northern Ireland, some pockets of frost certainly likely here. And then we look at the winds picking up along the south coast. A very blustery day to come tomorrow. Met Office yellow warning in place for the winds here and for the rain in Northern Ireland. Cause some problems today with more rain and hill snow here tomorrow again. That could cause further disruption. Nowhere immune from the downpours though during Thursday, and for most of us going to feel pretty chilly as well. Temperatures, well, struggling to get to double digits and feeling colder with the wind and the rain. As we go through the long weekend, signs of the weather getting at least a little drier. Better chance of seeing some sunshine on Good Friday, particularly over northern England and eastern England in the morning. Showers will develop almost everywhere by the afternoon. Fewer showers on Saturday, and Easter Day at this stage looking largely dry and signs of things at least turning just a little warmer.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News.
The weather continues to throw pretty much everything at us. Further heavy downpours tomorrow, snow in places and some gusty winds along the south coast thanks to this area of low pressure. Bands of showers have been spreading across the country throughout the past 24 hours or so, and another one spreading north tonight will bring some wet weather across southern England, South Wales, and that will develop some snow, perhaps over the West Midlands, certainly parts of Gloucestershire, Herefordshire and into central and then northern parts of Wales. Mostly over the hills, the snow, but there could be some at lower levels. Heavy rain for many elsewhere. As the rain clears from Scotland and Northern Ireland, some pockets of frost certainly likely here. And then we look at the winds picking up along the south coast. A very blustery day to come tomorrow. Met Office yellow warning in place for the winds here and for the rain in Northern Ireland. Caused some problems today with more rain and hill snow here tomorrow. Again, that could cause further disruption. Nowhere immune from the downpours though during Thursday, and for most of us going to feel pretty chilly as well. Temperatures, well, struggling to get to double digits and feeling colder with the wind and the rain. As we go through the long weekend, signs of the weather getting at least a little drier. Better chance of seeing some sunshine on Good Friday, particularly over northern England and eastern England in the morning. Showers will develop almost everywhere by the afternoon. Fewer showers on Saturday, and Easter Day at this stage looking largely dry and signs of things at least turning just a little warmer.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight, manhunt after a stabbing in broad daylight. Why did nobody intervene? Also,
those allegations were put to me, I got expert tax advice to make sure that I hadn't done anything wrong.
will the police reinvestigate Angela Rayner?
I simply urged him to ensure that we have the broadest possible debate.
And the Labour leader is back in trouble. This is big news, yet we're the only channel covering it. And
I volunteer with 2 local refugee charities.
I work for a migrants' rights organisation in Cambridge.
Classic BBC balance there. Also, I'll tell you why this comedian's poster was banned. On my panel tonight, it is the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got activist Adam Brooks and author Rebecca Reid. Oh, and I'll tell you what went wrong here.
This is the letter delivering to West Streeting. It appears that there's no police here this time.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. The net closes in on the Labour leader and deputy leader. Next.
Good evening. The top story from the GB newsroom tonight. Labour says it'll ban the bonuses of water company bosses if Britain's waterways are polluted on their watch. It's after new figures show raw sewage was dumped into England's rivers and seas for more than 3.6 million hours in 2023. And that's more than double the previous year and the highest level on record. Sewage was also dumped in Scottish rivers and lochs for more than an estimated 600 hours last year, the figures show. Now, a teacher who lost his job for what he said was his refusal to use a student's preferred pronoun has had his unfair dismissal claim rejected. Kevin Lister taught maths for 18 years at New College in Swindon before he was sacked for gross misconduct. In the lead-up to the hearing, he said it was not the role of a teacher to confirm the gender transition of a student. Carol Kitching, who was the school's head at the time, said he wasn't dismissed for his beliefs, but rather for the way he harassed and treated the student. A manhunt is underway tonight after a man armed with a zombie blade attacked another passenger on the train in broad daylight in front of other commuters. If you're watching on TV, a warning the footage we're about to show is somewhat distressing. The video circulating on social media appears to show a man wearing a face mask, wielding a large blade. It's after a fight broke out between the two people south of the capital. Police managed to stop the train and paramedics attended the scene, but the suspect got away. The victim has been taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. To the United States now, where in the state of Maryland, audio has emerged detailing the moment that emergency workers tried to evacuate the bridge there shortly before it collapsed. Take a listen.
There's a ship approaching has just lost their steering. So until you get that under control, we got to stop all traffic.
C-13 dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down. Start, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed.
The whole bridge just collapsed, he says. It comes after the search for survivors was suspended today, with 6 construction workers presumed dead. The cargo ship crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge yesterday morning, causing it to fold into the water below in less than 10 seconds. The city's port, one of the busiest in the eastern United States, is now closed indefinitely. Here, a driver who led police on a reckless high-speed chase, reaching speeds of almost 140 miles an hour, has been jailed. Munib Mehran was caught speeding on the M4 when police officers asked him to pull over. Instead of doing that, as dash cam footage shows, he sped up. The 23-year-old admitted charges including dangerous driving and the possession of cannabis, as well as driving without a licence and driving without insurance. Wiltshire police say it's fortunate no one was injured. He's been sentenced to 26 months in prison and disqualified from driving for 18 months. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts, scan the QR code on the screen right now, or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. The police are looking into the Angela Rayner case again, and Sir Keir Starmer could be investigated and suspended from Parliament. That's the Labour leader and deputy leader currently swimming in boiling hot water. It should be huge news, but you might not have heard about this because of the astonishing bias in the media. Greater Manchester Police are re-examining the case into whether or not Angela Rayner broke the law. The controversy is this. Ms Rayner registered her Stockport house, which she bought under the Right to Buy scheme in 2007, as her main address on the electoral roll. As a result, when she sold the property in 2015, making a profit of £48,000, she was not liable to pay capital gains tax on that money. But weeks after marrying Mark Rayner in 2010, she had re-registered the births of her 2 youngest children at his address just over a mile away. That raised questions over whether she moved in with her now estranged husband but did not update her address on the electoral register. HMRC rules state that married couples or civil partners can only count one property as their primary residence, OK? She obviously has denied any wrongdoing. Her neighbours called her an effing liar. The police initially said nothing untoward had happened and Angela Rayner was able to go in front of the cameras and get away with just hiding behind an anonymous alleged accountant who conveniently completely exonerated her.
Since those allegations were put to me, I got expert advice because I had advice at the time. I don't have an accountant. I was a home care worker. You know, I didn't have an accountant. I had, as most people would, you put your house on the market, you get a legal conveyancing solicitor, and you get an estate agent. But since those allegations were put to me, I got expert tax advice to make sure that I hadn't done anything wrong.
Oh, that's all right then, is it? Well, then it was pointed out that Greater Manchester Police apparently didn't speak to key witnesses or people of interest or examine key documents. So now they're looking into it again. Now it's Sir Keir Starmer's turn. In February, there was this infamous Gaza ceasefire vote where the Labour Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, inexplicably decided to break parliamentary convention after a behind-closed-doors chat with the Labour leader and made a decision that saved Sir Keir Starmer from a massive backbench and possible frontbench rebellion. That looked a bit rum, didn't it? The Labour leader initially refused to answer a simple question about whether he had threatened Commons Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle to make him break ancient Commons rules in Labour's favour. Then the next day, he admitted a conversation had taken place, but said he absolutely didn't threaten Sir Lindsay. There were calls from the Privileges Committee to investigate this, but Starmer managed to avoid it because it was decided that conversations in the Speaker's office should remain private. So then that went away, but now it's back. 58 MPs have signed an early day motion calling for a Privileges Committee investigation into whether undue pressure was placed on the Speaker. Now, if this happens and he's found guilty, then he can be suspended from Parliament. So Rishi Sunak, by the way, appears to be so bad at politics that despite being about 30 points behind in the polls, loads of his own MPs wanting to replace him and his cabinet quitting all around him, he's not going after Starmer or Rayner. Goodness me, there is a giant golden goose walking around in front of him wearing a sign that says, "Please, please, for the love of God, shoot me." He's holding a gun and he just can't bring himself to pull the trigger. You would have thought that the chance that Labour could lose their leader and deputy leader might have a bit of media traction. It's not really anywhere on Sky News, on the BBC or ITV. ITV, of course, who led the way in the Partygate investigation. They're conveniently, by the time I came on air anyway, ignoring this, it would seem. It appears that when it comes to left-wing politicians, you have to try to get the police to look into it twice before any action is taken. May I remind you that Boris Johnson was fined for a brief stand-up meeting with sandwiches that he didn't organise. And you have to find imaginative ways as well to get Parliament to investigate someone who might have driven a coach and horses through the rule book. There is a shocking double standard here. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We've got Director at Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I'm joined as well by businessman and activist Adam Brooks and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Mark, I'll start with you. I mean, hey, look, it does appear like if you are a left-wing politician and you may have done something wrong, then everybody else needs to get all the authorities relevantly to look at it twice.
Pretty shocking, this. I agree with you, Patrick. Something's quite worrying here. There are three different things going on that I think are troublesome. The first is, it's not so much that the Labour Party is a left-wing party, it's that a large number of the mainstream media expect them to win the next election. We heard John Curtis earlier saying a 99% chance, and they want to have good relations with the potentially incoming Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. And in fact, a senior Westminster editor, I'd describe him as, confirmed that to me just 10 days ago. I was saying, why isn't this all over the newspapers? Oh, well, you know, it's a bit tricky.
So hang on a minute. You had a senior Westminster editor.
Yeah, I won't say.
No, fine, obviously not. Appearing to say that the reason why they're not going after Starmer and Rayner
is they want good relations with the incoming government. Thankfully, you don't give a monkey to you irritate Patrick. So I think I think that it might be the same, by the way, if we had a Labour government and the Conservatives were on the brink of power. The way our Westminster journalism works, I'm afraid, has those will seek favours down the line. You'll want to be the journalist who gets the first tip-off about government policy and government machinations. So that's the first problem. The second is that this is actually a very complicated tax issue about primary residence. You did a good job of explaining it, but was she registered at the right place? If she wasn't and it was her primary residence, has she broken electoral law by being on the wrong address on the electoral register and so on and so forth? So it's quite technical and complicated. And the third problem is that the Tory campaign machine is useless.
Yeah.
If a Conservative was considered to be potentially in breach of the law or tax avoiding, the Labour Party machine would be all over him like a rash. It wasn't too long ago Nadeem Zahawi was forced to quit as the chairman of the Tory party, wasn't it? Now, he couldn't just come out and say, well, I mean, you'd be pleased to know I've had some expert tax advice, and it's all fine. So, so she should publish the tax advice, in my view. But if the people in blue rosettes can't lay a glove on the people in res rosettes, then the Conservatives only really have themselves to blame.
It's very difficult for Rishi to do anything about tax, particularly tax dodges or tax advice, legal or otherwise, because his wife legally avoided an estimated £20 million.
He could go for Starmer.
He could, absolutely.
He could very easily
but there is always a reason when they don't. I just want to pick up on this idea that it's somehow not being reported, because it is currently on The Guardian, The Telegraph, the BBC, Sky News, The Independent, ITV, The Times, Daily Express and Manchester Evening News.
At the time, I wrote that earlier on, it absolutely
but right now it's everywhere.
was not fine. OK,
so it
look,
is
this was out and about hours ago. This was out and about hours
ago. It's a very
ago.
legally contentious issue, and you have to get... You know that these things take time to get put up online. Most of these are a couple of hours old.
I doubt they'll end up on the headlines, though, for tomorrow's papers.
They will.
No, but the front pages.
We'll see in an hour.
We will see in an hour. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But at the time I wrote that was absolutely the case. And as you've just prepared to indicate, it is not long that they've gone online. My point is this. Why have they not been hammering them? Why was she allowed to just go on and say, hey, look, I spoke to an accountant, and the accountant says it's absolutely fine. Keir Starmer just got away with it. He all went very quiet about it.
Also, she tweeted when Boris was in trouble over the parties or gatherings, she tweeted that Boris is under investigation by the police. Why can't he do the right thing and resign? She's now under investigation by the police.
Well, they're thinking about it.
She also...
She might be.
OK, she also tweeted, Boris Johnson is under police investigation. How on earth can he think he can stay on as Prime Minister? So if she does end up being investigated, should she resign?
It's a big
by her own standards, she should resign.
By her own standards, unambiguously, she would have to.
But I think that was a mistake. Realistically, you should wait for an investigation to be concluded before you resign. That should be true of Boris. That should be true of Angela. Anybody. No, but it was a stupid thing. It was a very stupid thing to tweet because
twice.
Should the Privileges Committee at least have a look into what Keir Starmer did? It's worth noting. The only reason they didn't earlier on was because the clerks for the Speaker said that, oh well, look, whatever goes on behind closed doors has to be kept confidential, and that raised eyebrows in itself.
I have no issue with them with the police investigating Angela Rayner. I have no issue with the Privileges Committee of Lindsay Hall. However, I guarantee you, none of you will feel happier about this if they do a Privileges Committee and they find that there was no error. You will all still sit here and say, Keir backed him up.
It'd be quite nice.
I promise you I wouldn't.
Really? If a Privileges Committee says no, she can't.
That's the end of it.
But if you think Lindsay would cover for Keir first time round, why wouldn't he cover him second time round?
This is what I was just about to say. They're not going to throw each other under the bus. Neither of them are going to throw each other under the bus.
Well, hang on. There is a burden of proof and evidence. And, Rebecca, I don't appreciate you saying if the Privilege Committee came back and said we can't stack the case up, I wouldn't accept the result.
But I think Adam is saying he wouldn't because he thinks it would be untrue.
But the idea that the Privilege Committee shouldn't investigate something because you've already prejudged what their conclusion would be, this is exactly the sort of thing...
No, I'm saying whatever the conclusion is, I don't think anybody would be satisfied.
I'll be satisfied if they say, we can't resolve it, but we've given it our best shot. That's what an investigation is.
I don't know you very well. My instinct is I don't think you would.
Right, stop. You're absolutely, massively diverting away from the fact that, as it currently stands, both the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party and the Leader of the Labour Party could potentially be about to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure it will come to that for the reasons I've already said. I mean, the Conservatives can't seem to lay a glove on them. So I don't think it will come to that. And the interesting thing that I think Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, who don't get on well, is famously reported, Starmer, though, doesn't want Rayner to go. Can you imagine if there was a Labour deputy leadership election, who might emerge as the number two?
Isn't it nice to see two grown-ups in politics behaving well towards each other and keeping their party in order?
Let's also say that if the media stepped up the sort of pressure they put on Boris, on those two, that Labour would have serious problems.
And that's because people don't click on the articles. It's just about journalism. Honestly, that is a lack of public interest.
I'm sorry. That is ridiculous.
All we do is write articles that people read. That's it.
That is absolutely ridiculous. Well, then, lo and behold, woe betide the idea that somebody should just do their job.
Yeah, it's metrics-oriented journalism.
All right. A Greater Manchester Police spokesperson said, we have received a complaint regarding our decision not to investigate an allegation and are in the process of reassessing this decision. The complaint will be updated with the outcome of the reassessment in due course. Angela Rayner previously said being able to buy my council house back in 2007 was a proud moment for me. I worked hard, saved and bought it by the book. I'm not ashamed, but I am angry that the Tories have since put the dream of a secure home out of reach so many others. Right. Coming up, posh kids at Just Stop Oil continue stooping to new lows.
This is the letter delivering to West Streeting. It appears that there's no police here this time.
Do you reckon when she goes home she says, letter? Anyway, find out what's going on there when my panel and I run you through the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. And next, I bring you a GB News exclusive that shockingly exposes what the French government are really spending Britain's small boat prevention money, that's your money, by the way, on. And it has nothing to do with Britain. Dame Andrea Jenkins reacts to that, and that's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Can the Church of England not spend their money as they wish?
The Church of England can do amazing things for this country and for the world, and I'm not sure why it's chosen to focus on this specific issue. You know, one of the causes that I've always thought the Church was very good at were things called almshouses, which were basically houses that would be built on church estates for the needy. Not only did they want to spend £100 million on this fund, that they wanted to spend £1 billion on reparations as well. Well, why not spend 100 million or £1 billion on a new generation of almshouses, as opposed to just helping one group of people, black British people? Why not just help all people in need?
Alex?
Well, I just don't understand what the Church of England is trying to do. It's on its deathbed.
Congregations have reduced. I mean, deathbed is maybe a little bit...
Look, if we look over 20 years, it's dramatically lower than it used to be. And a lot of criticism from actual Christians come from the values that the Church of England are now propagating. And Justin Welby has a lot to answer for, because, you know, not only are we seeing in the news there's mass conversion of illegal immigrants to a gay mass system in the UK, but now we're seeing them spending money... And as Albie actually pointed out correctly, in a way that doesn't really benefit broader society, it benefits a very small group of people. So I just don't know where it's going to end. This committee has also said £1 million's not enough. It's 100 million, sorry.
Church commissioners are now hoping for a target of £1 billion.
I mean, it's woke nonsense, isn't it?
You could make the argument that this is charity. Justin Welby's job is to be a virtue signaller, is it not?
Charity discriminate? I mean, that's what he's saying. We're only going to give this to people from a specific skin colour or background. I don't think that's very Christian of them.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. Look, still to come, tonight's panel are going to give you the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But right now, it's time for a GB News exclusive. The British taxpayer is having to fork out tens of thousands of pounds to build a fence in France. It's designed to stop migrants camping at a football stadium. Yeah, seriously. Politicians in the town of Sangatte, near Calais, are using €74,000, that is apparently the equivalent of £63,000, of your money, British cash, to install a rigid fence at the La Porte du Cap, I'm not fluent, stadium. This money is taken from a budget of millions that Britain is sending to France to increase its border control and stop the small boats crisis, which is supposed to involve beefed-up security, extra CCTV and drone surveillance. Instead, your money will help build a fence that only serves to prevent migrants breaking into a French amateur football stadium and leaving their litter in and around the area, which has understandably sparked fury. But it's not our problem, is it? Tory MP Nigel Mills has blasted it. He says this is disgraceful. How on earth has this been allowed? This money is supposed to go on actually stopping the boats from crossing. It sounds like French politicians are spending our money on anything they want. It's insulting to the British taxpayer. So, yeah, 63 grand of your money is going to stop migrants sleeping at an amateur French football stadium. This comes as a record number of migrants crossed the Channel in the first 3 months of this year, with 4,644 making the journey between January and March. I'm delighted to welcome Tory MP and former Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins. Thank you very, very much. I'd quite like to have this money back. I don't know about you. Are France taking us to the cleaners here?
I want a refund of all the millions that they've squandered, actually, because they've never stopped the boats, have they, Patrick? I mean, it's a disgrace. I mean, this is British taxpayers' hard-earned cash, and it's been squandered on a fence to protect a French football stadium. You just couldn't make it up, could you?
No, and this isn't a fence, by the way, that's, you know, lining one of the beaches to stop them getting on. This isn't a fence that's really serving any practical purpose, not stopping them getting in the back of lorries, nothing. This is, it appears, just purely to protect an amateur French football club. I mean, it probably actually having the opposite effect of maybe just driving them onwards to the beaches.
I mean, can you believe we're even having this conversation, Patrick? I mean, I want to see ministers to be questioning this immediately and asking for a refund. I'll write to the ministers myself and the Prime Minister, because it's time to stop funding the French. It's time to stop spending taxpayers' money on hotels for illegal migrants. And we've got to put the money back into British people now. I'm like many people, I've had enough of this. We've got to stop wasting money. It's not working. The French are not living up to their side of the bargain, so let's get these millions back.
Do you think the British taxpayer is owed a full receipt of exactly where our millions of pounds to the French is going?
I definitely think so, but let's not forget, actually, Patrick, that France and the EU, that's the way they operate, isn't it? Look how they're closely aligned Macron is with the EU, how this is why we came out for Brexit in the first place, because the EU didn't sign off their accounts. There's no transparency. And let's not forget the secret meetings that Starmer's had with Macron, which is setting the stage for rejoining the EU, Patrick. So I think we need the receipts exactly as you said, and we need our money back.
Can I put this Home Office statement to you and just see what you make of it, all right? So the Home Office responded to us, and this was just as we went on air tonight, so I'm reading this for the first time along with you. Last year, our joint working with France saw over 26,000 of dangerous, illegal and unnecessary crossings attempts prevented. Since our landmark agreement with France, embedded observers have been deployed regularly on both sides of the Channel, and in March we agreed to more than double the number of personnel deployed in northern France. This partnership is just one part of the government's wider work to tackle illegal migration. What do you make of that, Dame Andrea?
I mean, if it's only 26,000 and look at how many's coming across, Patrick, how much does that work out per illegal migrant coming across compared to, you know, using the money that we've given to France? We've got to stop funding the French. I mean, I said this in a statement prior to the budget that I want to see us stop funding the money to France. They're not living up to their side of the bargain, and it's our money. We want it back.
All right, look, thank you very, very much. That is, of course, Dame Andrea Jenkins. They're wading into that GB News exclusive, which is at £63,000 of your money that we have given to the French to try to stop the migrant crisis. Appears to have been spent literally ring-fencing a French amateur football stadium instead. Coming up, the upper-class yobs that just stop oil. Wow, they just never seem to learn, do they?
This is the letter delivering to West Streeting. It appears that there's no police here this time.
Should they be targeting MPs' homes? And actually, by the way, they weren't even successful in that one. I'll reveal all very, very soon. But we've also got the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you straight after this short break. Don't you dare move.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The weather continues to throw pretty much everything at us. Further heavy downpours tomorrow, snow in places and some gusty winds along the south coast thanks to this area of low pressure. Bands of showers have been spreading across the country throughout the past 24 hours or so, and another one spreading north tonight will bring some wet weather across southern England, South Wales, and that will develop some snow, perhaps over the West Midlands, certainly parts of Gloucestershire, Herefordshire and into central and then northern parts of Wales. Mostly over the hills, the snow, but there could be some at lower levels. Heavy rain for many elsewhere. As the rain clears from Scotland and Northern Ireland, some pockets of frost certainly likely here. And then we look at the winds picking up along the south coast. A very blustery day to come tomorrow. Met Office yellow warning in place for the winds here and for the rain in Northern Ireland. Cause some problems today with more rain and hill snow here tomorrow. Again, that could cause further disruption. Nowhere immune from the downpours though during Thursday, and for most of us going to feel pretty chilly as well. Temperatures, well, struggling to get to double digits and feeling colder with the wind and the rain. As we go through the long weekend, signs of the weather getting at least a little drier. Better chance of seeing some sunshine on Good Friday, particularly over northern England and eastern England in the morning. Showers will develop almost everywhere by the afternoon. Fewer showers on Saturday, and Easter Day at this stage looking largely dry and signs of things at least turning just a little warmer.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GB News, and I have got all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and I think I'm right in saying before anyone else, so let's do it. Right, the Metro. Totally failed. Social workers put baby back in drug-addicted parents' care, then did not check on him amid a catalogue of disasters. It is a, as it says here, damning report into the savage death of baby Finlay, an absolutely disgraceful case. Let's go to the Independent. Barred from Europe, 2.4 million Brits caught in Brexit passport chaos. Thousands face Easter getaway misery as EU refuses to recognise passports over 10 years old. British travellers now categorised as third country nationals. Again, I would just like to say, were they ever really our friends? Go to the Eye. Labour attacked for feeble plan on Britain's sewage crisis. Labour are accused of failing to set out a plan for effectively tackling the amount of sewage being pumped into our rivers. We will return to that, but here's a big one, and it's on the front of the Daily Mail. Are you ready? Could Rishi gamble on a summer election? Well, apparently the speculation is now that we're going to get a June or July election. All right, so that is the latest noises. They've gone with it on the Daily Mail. There's a couple of other online outlets going with it as well. We've got the Mirror now, I believe. Yes, we do. Day I lost my Paul. Husband speaks for first time about the star's last moment. That's Paul O'Grady's husband, of course. The Guardian. Outrage over record discharges of sewage into the rivers and seas. And also, Peter Mandelson has dismissed the prospect of a Labour government taking Britain back into the EU, saying you've got to be joking. So there we go. Right, I'm focusing in first on the Daily Mail because, according to them, we are quite possibly going to get a June or July election. And it's, I think, actually, we were just chatting about this just in the advert break there. Rebecca, I actually do think that you might have got a good idea of why this is.
What? I had a good idea.
You are full of good ideas.
Occasionally. I think it is a smart idea for him because I think that the liberal metropolitan elite like me are in Tuscany, and young people who don't tend to vote for the Tories will be at festivals and travelling and away, and younger people are less likely to take the time to get a postal vote, so it might just cut out sway the bus.
The young will be too busy enjoying themselves at Glasgow or whatever.
And the quinoa of us will be abroad.
And the quinoa eating will be abroad. So essentially, it's just the old biddies, and they tend to vote Tory.
And the red wall, they all stay at home.
No offence to any old biddies, of course. I'm big fans of the old.
I am generalising, but I do think it might. It might.
Mark, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, the Conservative Party are 20% behind in the polls. You're going to need an awful lot of lefties to go to Tuscany. And you're going to have a Glastonbury festival 50 times bigger than it's ever been.
But do you think it might? Do you think it might like carve a slither off the side?
I reckon if you're 20% behind, you just carry on and just hope for things to get better, which I doubt they will. But you just carry on and hope something turns up.
So you'd go winter if you were.
Let me just read another aspect to this. I'm going to go to Adam on this. But apparently, one of the considerations is the amount of letters of no confidence that have already been received by Graham Brady about Rishi Sunak, and that could twist his arm.
He's trying to time out any sort of leadership challenge, in my opinion. They are going to get annihilated. It doesn't matter if it's in June, July, August, September, October or November. They're finished. They might as well roll the dice now. I can't say it enough times. Roll the dice, go with a strong immigration leader and have a go. You are dying. The Conservative Party is dying.
Do you think another leadership election now or not?
Yes. Get rid of Rishi. I mean, he's possibly been the worst Prime Minister I've seen in decades. He's not done one thing he said he would do. They are finished.
Let us know what you think at home on this. gbviews@gbnews.com. It's on the front of the Daily Mail. Could Rishi gamble on a summer election? What does that mean for you? It could be June, it could be July. Apparently. So this is it. And there are aspects of this that do make sense. As you were saying, maybe it would be better for them to do that because of potentially younger people or whoever being away, I suppose. But it obviously comes on the day that Labour were given a 99% chance of forming the next government. I'm going to whiz us along now and just talk about this sewage crisis that's been mentioned on the front of the Eye. It's not just human waste and sanitary towels that the marine life of Britain is being battered by. Have a look at this.
And in the marine life just beneath our feet, we're actually finding they're full of drugs. They're full of contraceptive pill, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. Every single marine species that we've looked at so far is full of cocaine.
Every single species they look at is full of cocaine. Right. Mark, what does this say about Britain, that if you cut a fish open, it is apparently full of antidepressants, Class A drugs and morning-after pills?
Well, it must be the people advising Rishi Sunak on when to call an early election, I would have thought, right? Pretty desperate state of it. No, this is grim, right, the whole water story. And I know some people say, what a failure of privatisation, but I actually think we haven't got the right market pricing here. And the Eye are covering Labour's being branded as being feeble on the scale of the price crisis. And I rather agree, because Labour's plan is to go after the chief executives and the fat cats. If this sewage continues, you're not going to be able to have a bonus. I would just charge the water companies huge fines if they... And guess what? The shareholders will pretty quickly insist their chief executive ensures that they act in a tidier and better fashion. So we just don't have the right fines and price mechanisms in place.
If you see the amount I pay at my pub, my water bills, it would make you fall off the chair. It's a disgrace. Not only am I paying, obviously, for water that comes in, I'm paying for the water that has to leave the premises as well. It's huge. And what are we getting for that? But one thing I will say, everyone blames the Tories, water this and Labour attack line on the Tories. Alistair Campbell tweeted today, he was fact-checked. The last Labour government was taken to the European Court of Justice for failing to stop thousands of tonnes of raw sewage pouring into the Thames. They were taken to a European court. They were so bad. That was Labour. again, with all sorts of policies, if the young generation think that Labour is the answer, they've got a rude awakening
it was
coming.
a completely different Labour Party led by different people, staffed by different people. Very few people are still in the...
Just look at Wales. Look how bad Wales is run.
According to the R, Rebecca, campaigners are warning that proposals to fine water bosses, block bonuses are, quote, feeble gestures. Are we looking at another issue here where Labour actually just doesn't have a plan?
I think that they know that it's popular. Everyone in this country agrees that we like clean water, so they're trying to score some points, like everybody is. But I completely agree. I think finding them would make more sense. But also, it's criminal negligence. If you are poisoning people or fish, that is still negligence. We should not be in a situation where men in London apparently have high oestrogen levels because you're drinking tap water that's got so much of the contraceptive
you wouldn't drink tap water, then, would you, Rebecca?
I do, in London.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all the time.
Wow.
I mean, there's very little in that water that I don't put in my body,
I'm going to
so I'm
start
not
drinking
worried.
it now. I'm going to start drinking it now. Understand there might be cocaine in it. Pretty cheap.
Wow.
Now, OK.
We are totally against drugs on this show.
On that bombshell. All right, so, look, Just Stop Oil were back to their old tricks today as they filmed themselves delivering a letter to what they thought was Labour MP Wes Streeting's home address. Let's see.
This is the letter delivering to Wes Streeting. It appears that there's no police here this time. Should I go hang myself in for breaking bail?
No, you're not, because you've not gone round to an MP's house. You've just gone round to a total stranger's house and given them a letter. So despite breaking her bail conditions after being arrested for delivering letters twice before, Phoebe doesn't seem to be very good at it, OK? So Wes Streeting responded, I don't know which poor sod got your letter, but that isn't my house. It isn't even in my borough. I mean, honestly, seriously, Rebecca, despite that obvious failure, does Just Stop Oil's intrusive tactic of exposing politicians' home addresses, or indeed, you know, quite possibly Sandra from number 42, do they need to stop?
Oh, I love Phoebe. It's so sweet. I think there's something so gloriously, cheerfully naive about that. And realistically, when huge crowds are outside MPs' houses, they can understand it's intimidating and the police should intervene. But nobody is scared of Phoebe putting a letter through the door. It's a gentle form of protest. Probably she should go to his office rather than to his house. But fundamentally, Adam, if she came to your house, would you be scared of Phoebe?
She wouldn't get past my gates. I've got big gates. She wouldn't get past
Should you put it under your gate? Is that all right?
Go on, Adam, what's your take on this?
Obviously, Tarquin gave her the wrong address, so, you know, let her down. But, no, I don't want anyone coming to my house. I think it's wrong to target people's house. There's family there. Kids could be scared. I'm not saying they'd be scared of her, but once she's done it and put it all over the internet, others could then go to your houses. It sets a bad precedent, and I think we need to stay away from MPs' houses, you know, and public figures' houses. It's wrong. I don't know where this line's been crossed. It's really got to stop.
I think the issue is it feels that there are fewer and fewer ways that you're allowed to protest. So houses, not OK. Outside certain embassies, not OK.
Oh, come on.
The students in Bristol taking Wells Memorial Building, not OK.
I would say it's public space, so...
But that's street. That is the public space.
It's on his driveway.
But if she's on his street, would you be OK with it?
Well, this is starting to, I think, to intrude on people's public or private space. I mean, your right to freedom of speech does not extend to your right to scream through my letterbox.
Someone's going to come unstuck, because if someone aggressively came to my house and I felt I had to defend my family, I'll do it.
But she's not...
So someone is going to come very unstuck with something.
Being aggressive is illegal.
Because she was so incompetent, she misidentified the address.
Yeah.
But you get the sense they're
even if she
trying
hasn't,
to be
posting a letter is not illegal.
But they're definitely...
Being creepy is not illegal.
The tweets are creepy.
If being creepy was illegal, they'd have to shut down all of the dating apps.
It's a kind of stalking.
Can I just politely suggest it does make you wonder what else they might be wrong about? Do you know what I mean? They can't get an MP's address right, OK, but they're absolutely certain that their facts on the climate crisis are spot on. Can I just read out a couple of my emails here? Thank you very much. I was asking you about this election. I'm just going to do it very quickly. Apparently, the election, is going to be in June or July, right? So I was asking what you think about that. Doesn't matter when they call an election, says David. The Tories are finished. Rishi is finished. Yeah, loads of people getting in touch to say that. Yeah, and a lot of people as well agreeing with Adam, which is that you should just roll the dice. You should just roll the dice. That seems to be the main one. Election now, please. The Conservatives are completely useless, says Matthew. Rishi must go, says Phil. A heck of a lot of that. Also, quite a bit of pushback to me accidentally using the phrase old biddies. Now, I would like to apologise now to all of the older ladies here who are naming themselves in the inbox now. Say they like the show, but they are deeply offended. I apologise. Anyway, coming up, 275 migrants were granted visas for fictitious care homes. You really couldn't make this up. Find out more as I crown tonight's greatest bristling union jackass. But next, shocking scenes of violence on Britain's public transport. Absolutely horrendous. We'll bring you more on that knife-wielding nutter right after this break. Stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Is the brand of toothpaste super important here, or is it more about the toothbrush? Because I was told a long time ago by my dentist, electric toothbrush, Pip, that is the way to go.
You're exactly right. I mean, the action of mechanically removing plaque, so using a brush, is much more effective than the brand of toothpaste itself. But in terms of the ingredient in toothpaste that we're looking for, it's something called fluoride. And fluoride is essential to help remineralize and strengthen our teeth. It's really important to use a toothpaste with fluoride. And in terms of brushing, using an electric toothbrush is just much easier. You know, you're brushing your teeth first thing in the morning, last thing at night. You're going to be a bit tired in those times. So using an electric toothbrush, you just hold it against your tooth and gum and it does all the work for you. So it's just much easier in my opinion.
But you have to use your electric toothbrush properly.
You're exactly right. Yeah, there is a technique of actually brushing your teeth, although it sounds really simple. With an electric toothbrush, you have to hold it against the tooth and the gum. Ideally, you want a pressure sensor in that toothbrush so you know exactly when you're pressing too hard. But if you're using a manual toothbrush, you need to move it around and small circular motions. But actually what I see is people who use manual toothbrushes, they tend to over scrub and over brush, which can actually lead to gum recession and your enamel thinning long term.
Sometimes I will get up in the morning and I will have breakfast and then I'll brush my teeth. Is that wrong?
Unfortunately, that's wrong. So the best time to brush your teeth is first thing in the morning, as soon as you wake up. If you're brushing after you eat and after breakfast, you're brushing your teeth in that weakened acidic state. So your teeth are actually under attack and they're much more vulnerable.
Yes, welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. A manhunt is currently on the way for a knife attacker, but before we talk about that, I've got the rest of tomorrow's front pages for you. Start with the Telegraph. The King thanks the public for extending the hand of friendship. This is the King's Easter message of care and service, and it will be played at the Royal Maundy Gathering. That's leading the Telegraph with their picture story there. Again on the Express, King calls for more kindness in a time of need. Charles reflects on the nation's support for himself and Kate amid the cancer battles. We go to the Sun. TV star in tragic accident. Gogglebox George falls to his death. Gilby 40. In plunge at warehouse. Apparently this accident is being investigated. His family, understandably, obviously, are, quote, absolutely gutted. The Times. Johnson had right idea on levelling up, says Keir Starmer. Labour to tackle alienation and powerlessness. All right, sounds a bit zen, doesn't it? Sir Keir Starmer has praised Boris Johnson's mission to level up Britain and accused Rishi Sunak of killing the policy. There we go. Right, Sunak tells us struggle to be a good father as well. So, yes, all right, fair enough. Look, I am going to, go straight back in with my panel now. As you know, I'm joined by the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and author and journalist Rebecca Reed. But look, a manhunt is underway after a knife man armed with a zombie blade attacked a man on a train in front of passengers. Footage on social media appears to show a man wearing a face mask and wielding a large blade after a fight broke out between two people at Shortland Station in the south of the capital. The victim has been taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries following a stabbing on a train. The Metropolitan Police intercepted the train at Beckenham Junction Station. Paramedics attended the scene. British Transport has tweeted in the past few moments that officers are carrying out extensive inquiries to trace the suspect. Now, you will see an enhanced police presence apparently across the stations within the area. The force does not believe there's any wider risk to the public, all right, but Yeah, look, I mean, Adam, I know that you've done a lot on knife crime and all of these kind of things. You know, that is, you know, a massive knife in broad daylight on a packed train, stunned members of the public just going about their
horrific.
business.
Look, I speak a lot about knife crime on many different platforms. I lost my father to knife crime.
Yeah.
People saying that that they should have intervened there. You can't intervene with someone. That's nearly a sword.
That's the question. Can I just keep you on this? Because there was a lot of people around going, well, there were loads of men sat on that train. They didn't do anything. There's a woman that can be heard screaming, you know, saying stop, stop. I think she's the one filming and calling the police as well. So what do you make of that? There wasn't any intervention.
Look, I would put myself as brave and you know, I couldn't intervene there unless it was a child being attacked.
Yes.
I could not intervene there because one stab with that knife and you are dead. I've got a family too. You can't intervene with something that big. That is nearly a sword, Patrick.
It is, actually. It is.
And anyone would be crazy to try and intervene in that.
And let's be up, but it's also, I mean, I'm just looking at this clips of footage. It's not really a packed train, is it? It's a pretty empty train. If you had 50 or 60 people there, you might find some way of rushing him. But it looks like there's 2 or 3 other passengers. Your odds are not good if you intervene.
Even then, the brave thing to do sometimes is to step back and not get involved. It's not better to insert yourself in a situation. All that would have meant is that more people got hurt.
Doesn't this just show how absolutely cheap life is and how commonplace it is? You know, the individual who is injured, again, you know, I'll just say at the time of us reporting this, the latest that we understand is that they are alive and that the injuries are life-threatening and that no arrests have been made. Again, you know, how have no arrests been made yet? We've got phone footage of it. You would imagine the CCTV footage.
How did he get off the train?
How did he get off the train?
That's a confined space. In what world are the police so incompetent that they can't handle that?
And remember, this has all happened in apparently the safest city in the world, according to Sadiq Khan.
I think it's the 14th safest city in the world.
It's not even that. London is dangerous. Ask someone, you know,
yeah,
I speak
I
to
grew
people.
up here, you grew up around here, it is dangerous.
It is dangerous. It's not a safe city, and things like this highlight it, Patrick.
So, well, I'm going to highlight something else here, and I think this might bring a smile to a few of your faces. So we all know that the BBC has morphed from the national broadcaster to a left-wing propaganda machine. Some people would say, but they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Look at the state of this audience, Newsnight cobbled together in the blue wall seat of South Cambridgeshire.
I recently graduated from university in media and environmental communication, so I learnt a lot about the climate crisis.
Good evening, my name is Elizabeth, I live locally. I also volunteer with Greenpeace.
Long-distance swimmer, both in rivers and in the sea.
I volunteer with 2 local refugee charities, and I live in South Cambridge.
I work for a migrants' rights organisation in Cambridge, and I just wanted to echo some of the points we've heard tonight about the hostile immigration environment.
There it is. I mean, there it is, OK? We didn't do that, they did that. Oh, I wonder will there be calls for anyone to look into that? I don't know. Mark?
Pretty strange, isn't it? I was just really hoping the next person was going to say, you know, I'm Bill and I'm a really staunch Millwall fan. But no, you don't really get much of that in South Cambridge.
Instead, we had a load of Tarquins.
When you have GB News Live, how many people in the audience are like, hi, I'm Cressida and my degree is in environmental science? Certain programmes attack certain audiences. That's OK.
But they are the national broadcaster.
But these people are the people who applied to go.
Sorry, we're not the BBC, and, you know, they've got a duty there to provide.
But also, why do you assume that the guy who likes swimming is a lefty? Why do you assume the girl with the degree is a lefty? Why do you assume the person who volunteers with refugees is a lefty?
Why do I assume the one who volunteers with refugees is a lefty?
Yeah, why?
I'm going to leave that there.
Why?
Reach that conclusion.
I'd like to know. Why is the swimmer a lefty? What's left-wing about swimming?
No, I just think it was interesting that they were obviously having a conversation there, and every single other person was quite openly, I would argue, quite left-wing, working for Greenpeace.
I don't think that volunteering is an inherently left-wing activity. I think plenty of right-wing... No, with refugees. I think plenty of right-wing people would volunteer in all kinds of places. You're saying right-wing people don't volunteer with Ukrainian refugees?
Not for Greenpeace,
they might do, but I suppose they might do. I think it paints a picture, though, doesn't it?
I think that was a little mean to the right-wing people. I think they're also good volunteers.
I think you're being deliberately provocative. Okay, which is, to be fair, a thing I would know a bit about. But no, I mean, look, come on, do you not think the BBC maybe have a bit of a duty to explain themselves here?
Yeah, look, I think Newsnight is a joke, if I'm honest. That is not balanced. That's not a balanced audience in any way. You know, as you said, there should be different types of people, and they were the same type of people.
Yeah, in the supposedly blue wall. I mean, that's the other aspect of this, isn't it? Which is supposedly it's a very a quote-unquote Tory area, and that's
very refined, evidently. Very refined area.
Very refined area.
I think
Lots of swimming and Greenpeace volunteering going on.
How long have I got left on this? Can I potentially play you that again? Because that did crack me up the first time round. Have I got time to play that again, maybe? Hopefully. Go on, let's play it again.
I recently graduated from university in media and environmental communication, so I learnt a lot about the climate crisis.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth. I live locally. I also volunteer with Greenpeace.
Long-distance swimmer, both in rivers and in the sea.
I volunteer with 2 local refugee charities, and I live in South Cambridge.
I work for a migrants' rights organisation in Cambridge, and I just wanted to echo some of the points we've heard tonight about the hostile immigration environment.
That one I'll give
Right. I'm going with solid 95% left.
No, I'll give you that last one, but the rest of them I think is a it's a disservice to right-wing people to assume they wouldn't do volunteering with any organisation.
You are allowed to make some assumptions about people, though. People say, you know, I'm a staunch football fan and I'm a proud member of the Royal British Legion. You probably assume they're on the right.
They could be a Labour voter.
Right. They could be, but it's not likely.
They could be. Right, it's time to reveal now tonight's greatest Britain Union jackass. Mark, who's your greatest Briton?
Pretty obvious one, really. I'm going for the Queen, Camilla. Done an absolutely fine job. We've seen the King himself on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, but under these circumstances, she has really stepped up to the plate. And if you think back 10, 20 years, she was not a popular personality or a royal at all. Inch by inch and through great dignity and service. She hasn't just salvaged her reputation, it's gone absolutely booming.
All right, go on, Adam.
Mine is Rachel McLean for being cleared of an apparent hate crime. And that crime was apparently to tell the Greens that they don't know what a woman is.
OK. All right, go on.
Mine's Gloria Steinem, who is a pioneering feminist who turned 90 this week.
OK, all right. No, really?
Yeah. Yeah, she was the feminist everyone liked because she was the hot one. There were others, but she is incredibly talented.
If she's 90 in that picture, that is amazing.
I mean, that might not be from this week, but that's it's recent.
But
She does look amazing. She does look amazing.
Right, OK, today's greatest Briton is Rachel McLean, MP. There we go. Right, OK. Now, time, rattle through these. Union jackass.
York St John University. When I was at university, Reservoir Dogs came out, that violent movie with a couple of trigger warnings, but we got through it as university undergraduates. York St John University has now put white supremacy trigger warnings for its students on Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland.
See me. Right, OK, go on.
Mine is the Home Office. They've granted 275 migrants visas for a fictitious care home that did not exist.
Didn't exist.
They're not doing their job.
OK, go on.
Mine is Dr. Andrew Kelso, who put out a warning this week advising British people that you can't eat a whole Easter egg this weekend and that you need to ration it. What a silly thing to say. It's Easter. Eat your Easter egg and enjoy it.
Jester eggs.
Now, I might shock a few people here, but tonight's winner of the Union Jackass is indeed Rebecca's suggestion of Dr. Andrew Kelso, who advises all not to eat her Easter egg in one go. Just get out of our lives. All right, happy Easter. Thank you to everybody who's watched. I will be live again from 9 p.m. tomorrow. It is Headliners next. See you then.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The weather continues to throw pretty much everything at us. Further heavy downpours tomorrow, snow in places and some gusty winds along the south coast thanks to this area of low pressure. Bands of showers have been spreading across the country throughout the past 24 hours or so, and another one spreading north tonight will bring some wet weather across southern England, South Wales, and that will develop some snow, perhaps over the West Midlands, certainly parts of Gloucestershire, Herefordshire and into central and then northern parts of Wales. Mostly over the hills, the snow, but there could be some at lower levels. Heavy rain for many elsewhere. As the rain clears from Scotland and Northern Ireland, some pockets of frost certainly likely here. And then we look at the winds picking up along the south coast. A very blustery day to come tomorrow. Met Office yellow warning in place for the winds here and for the rain in Northern Ireland. Cause some problems today with more rain and hill snow here tomorrow again. That could cause further disruption. Nowhere immune from the downpours though during Thursday, and for most of us going to feel feel pretty chilly as well. Temperatures, well, struggling to get to double digits and feeling colder with the wind and the rain. As we go through the long weekend, signs of the weather getting at least a little drier. Better chance of seeing some sunshine on Good Friday, particularly over northern England and eastern England in the morning. Showers will develop almost everywhere by the afternoon. Fewer showers on Saturday, and Easter Day at this stage looking largely dry, and signs of things at least turning just a little warmer.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. You could win an amazing £12,345 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. Plus, there's a further £500 of shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. We'll also give you a gadget package to use in your garden this spring. That includes a games console, a pizza oven and a portable smart speaker, so you can listen to GB News on the go. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB0